why I went into economics is partly an embarrassing story. I was a huge science fiction fan as a teenager, and I loved the foundation novels of Isaac Asimov, and in which a group of social scientists, through their understanding of the laws of human behavior, saved galactic civilization. I wanted to be one of those guys, and the closest you can get to that in the world today is economics. Also, I loved history, but I found that I wasn't feeling satisfied with the history courses. I took a lot of history. I took as much history as economics when I was an undergrad, but I felt that there wasn't enough real explanation in them. And economics are a way to think about what happens in the world, that you really are getting a lot of traction on reality. So all that took me into economics. Well, I was super lucky as an undergrad because I had first of a series of mentors. So Bill Nordhaus, who was at Yale, I took an undergrad course from him, sort of took me under his wing, got me into doing some research at that point on energy issues. Actually, it was a little bit contemporary because the first thing I did was looking at the differences in gasoline consumption among countries. Gas is much more expensive in Europe, they use a lot less of it, and I was off and running. It really got the ability to take a look at some real-world problem and think it through, think it through in terms of a model, think it through in terms of what kind of data do I need to really get a handle on how this thing works. That's, I was completely into that by my senior year in college. So when I went off to grad school, one of the underlying rules, if you do go to grad school, is that whatever it is you thought you were going to work on is not what you end up working on. So I thought I was going to do energy, but found that international trade got me really interested. And I worked on international trade. I researched or wrote about it, and but there was a problem with international trade. If you go back to 30 years ago, the theory of international trade is about why do countries trade with each other? Why do they trade the things they do? The theory that we had 30 years ago was one that really said that countries trade because they're different. You've got a warm climate, I've got a cold climate, I'm going to grow wheat, you're going to grow coffee. Which there's a lot of that stuff in the world. But a lot of world trade is countries that look very similar trading with each other, and they're actually trading stuff that looks very similar too. A lot of two-way trade in automobiles between European countries, between the United States and Canada. And so the work I did, and really that ended up with a nice ceremony in Stockholm, was how do we think about that? How do we think about it? The story is that it's about the advantages of large-scale production, but to even get there, you have to think about worlds in which you have large companies which are interacting with each other strategically. So it's all about industrial organization, increasing returns to scale, and international trade. It's kind of seems totally natural now, but at the time it was really a radical departure in the way people thought about it. I was actually in Washington in a hotel room for a meeting about the financial crisis, and a cell phone went off. And some guy with a what sounded to me like an obviously fake Swedish accent said, "Hey, hello, this is the Nobel Committee. We'd like to congratulate you." And so I actually didn't fully believe it. This was 6:30 in the morning. I didn't fully believe it until 7 when it actually popped up on the Nobel website. And I wasn't sure it wasn't a practical joke. So that's how I got the call. And I was wondering actually how they had my cell phone number. But it turns out there's a Swedish friend of ours who had the number, who gave it to them. It's partly a question of just what you can do well. And I think I have, over the decades, learned what things I'm pretty good at and what I'm not. So you really don't want me doing any academic administration. I steer totally clear of that, and that's good. On the other hand, I am a very fast writer. Turns out that that's one of the things that, if you ask, how do I do that? And the answer is I have no idea. But I am a very fast writer, and so I can do a lot of writing in a way that probably a lot of other people couldn't.